Welcome to a bonus edition of Idle Talk. Yes, I mentioned it once that we might be having bonus episodes this year. First one, a little bit off the dome. We're just going to be talking about, if you haven't heard already, Jamie Lynn Spears, better known as Zoe from Zoe 101, better known as Ted Cruz dressing up in drag. Not my joke. Found it on Twitter. Just shout out to whoever said that. But she is on Call Her Daddy, Spotify exclusive podcast, by the way. But she's talking about in a 2-part interview series. First part just dropped today, Tuesday, just when Idle Talk dropped. You know, Alex, I don't appreciate you using the Idle Talk day to drop, one of your 2-parters, and the next episode comes out, I believe, tomorrow, Wednesday. It just said Wednesday at the very end, but that literally could mean any Wednesday. Not too sure. I hope it's tomorrow because I get to talk about part 2 tomorrow. But, wow, part 1 filled a whole bunch of shit I did not want to know. I did not care for the first, 25 minutes. It's an hour and 5 minute long podcast. I could give a shit about their early childhood. Get to the juicy parts. Get to, did you know about, were you involved, in all that Britney stuff about how she was being put down, shut down, her voicelessness activities. So, we'll get to that tomorrow. But she kind of talks about her experiences with her teenage pregnancy and experiences with the paparazzi. And that was a little bit interesting about how she really didn't know. She was a teenager, right? We forget that she was a minor and she got pregnant, and then Zoe 101 got canceled, obviously, for obvious reasons. But she drops a good line in her interview where she's like, at least the paparazzi had balls to put it on the front page, right? And I think she was comparing that to people who kind of do paparazzi-like activities on social media and just hide behind a username or whatever. And, that kind of that's the part that stuck with me, and I was like, that's a very interesting take on the paparazzi. It's hey, at least they had the balls to put their name on it and put it on the cover and obviously do the things that they were doing, and were kind of shameless about it. So that was an interesting takeaway from that. I did write down some notes, but I'm not going to use them. I just finished listening to the episodes for the second time, so if I don't remember much, it's because it really wasn't that important. But when she got pregnant, apparently she was not able to tell anyone that she got pregnant, and outside of her mom, her dad, and the team that knew, she didn't tell Britney. And she mentions that she wished she did tell her, because it could have probably gone a little bit different. Her pregnancy could have been handled better. She could have had a bigger support system just outside of her mother. So it was very interesting that the mother knew, and she says that the father, after she got pregnant, he left to go handle Britney's stuff. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna just fuck with Britney for a little bit, get out of my face. Which is not an appropriate response, but I think it's crazy that the dad just kept his mouth shut the entire time. Didn't even hey, Britney, guess what happened? Da, 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 da. So that's an interesting thing that happened during that event. And she said that Britney found out when the whole world found out, and that was through a tabloid, in a little magazine. That she did eventually sell the rights to a magazine about her pregnancy and announcing the pregnancy and having an article written and having the pictures, picking the pictures and whatnot. And she said that all that money that she made from doing that went directly to her daughter. She's like, this is your money. Have that. Sorry. But it another part that stuck with me in that first part of the interview was that people were like, you need to get it aborted. You need to abort it. This is going to ruin your career. And she said, how would you tell that to a little girl who is also about to have a little girl? So just imagine yourself one day on the internet and you see that you are the reason, quote unquote, the reason why your mother's career is over, and how that would impact her and how that would affect her for the rest of her life. And that's not something I really ever thought of, remembering back then how I was similar to her age when that was happening. But looking at it now, you don't really think about that. Like the least 10 years, right? You got 10 good years before you figure out how to use the internet. At least, kids are learning about it, so quicker and, easier than before. So, it would be hopeful to have at least 10 years before you're able to fully be on the internet and researching stuff. But just imagine, put yourself in that child's shoes right now. Just imagine you're on Google. You're like, hey, let's Google my name, as random kids do. And it's like, hey, I'm going to Google my name. And it's like, your name doesn't come up with really anything until, like, you get to, the announcements. Like, oh, so-and-so's having a baby. And then there's a bunch of comments how it's going to ruin her career. Or, like, a bunch of articles titled the same thing, career dead, career over, because teenage pregnancy, blah, 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 blah. And I don't know. To me, that just doesn't feel good. I don't really feel good, like, remembering the issue from the interview. But, that was something that, didn't sit well with me. It was like, oh, fuck. Like, that's really fucked up to, like, have to go through that. Especially how they mentioned, Alex, had some soft hitting questions. And I hope part 2 has harder hitting questions. It feels like she is love tapping Jamie Lynn throughout the interview. But I think we're going to get deep into part 2 and it's going to, questions are going to start hurting a little bit. And that's my expectations because, I like this podcast. I've listened to it since day one. I met some very good friends through this podcast, formed different kind of bonds throughout this podcast. So, like, I'm a fan. I haven't been disappointed yet in how she conducts interviews, but I would like to see her not, have this 2-part interview controlled in that way where it's like, you can ask this amount of questions, but that's it. So, like, I'm looking at it. I'm literally looking at the podcast right now. I got 1 second left on that thing. Another interesting bit that we got from the interview was that she also threatened to emancipate from her parents. That Britney wasn't the only Spears kid to do so. And it never happened. She didn't emancipate. She just got the blessing of her parents. Like, okay, as parents, we're gonna support you if anything, happens to you, or if it doesn't work out. Because she says she goes out and she was explaining to her parents that she wanted to do XYZ, that she would lie about going to doctor's appointments when really she was meeting up with a lawyer. She's like, yeah, money's all mine, like da. I just need, I want to get a house. I want to start a family because I'm having a baby, and basic concern, like, kind of mother things. But yeah, she said that she eventually got to, like, a ultimatum. She's like, I could either get married while pregnant, the judge would allow it, and the only thing that I risk is all my money because I won't be able to sign a prenup, right? Or her parents sign off on the papers and let her do what she needs to do. And so the parents were like, okay, listen, don't get emancipated, but we'll let you do whatever you want. We want to support you. We want to be here for you just in case you would ever need us. And, that's, you hear the story now, how Britney was treated after she got checked in to her, her stints at mental institutions and whatnot. But, it's here in the interview is like, did their parents really love them or care for them like that? And, signs point to yes, but, there should never be a but after that, kind of question. But it was very interesting to hear her talk about that through, like, the last, like, maybe 30 minutes or so, how she paid for a cabin, like, outside of New York City. Like, they drove a few hours. She still to this day doesn't know where that cabin, like, was. She just knows that she paid a lot of money for it. And I say she because it came out of her checks. She said the Zoe 101 checks, they weren't light, right? There was some checks coming in from Nickelodeon. But yeah, she said she paid for the cabin. She, to this day, still doesn't know where she was. She had to isolate because paparazzi were gonna just swarm her if they even got a scent of something maybe off in the Spears family, especially coming from Jamie, who wasn't necessarily, the main focus point. Who wasn't necessarily the main focus point of that family. Like, let's be real. You think you hear Spears, you hear the name Spears, and you think Britney, and Jamie is like right after that, and they're like, oh yeah, they're sister, kind of like the Olsen twins, and so like Elizabeth Olsen, and then her sisters that are twins. I don't remember their names, but let's get back onto the interview. So it was crazy that she literally had to isolate for about 2 to 3 weeks, no internet, no nothing, until that article dropped. Because remember, she sold the rights to that information to a magazine, and it's crazy that Britney found out that way. Like even as a parent, right? You wanna keep your family informed of things. Your family, like you want to be like family first. However, you want to like lie to yourself about that. But it's like they just told Jamie that she could not tell anyone, and she just assumed that Britney would get the word. Britney would get the message, like hey, this is happening with your sister. But for some reason, whatever reason, it didn't happen. And from either the interview Jamie just did with Alex Cooper, either she's really sincere about it and she really feels bad that happened that way, or she's just lying to my face, because it looked like sincerely that she actually like regrets that part, not telling Britney about it. So those are my like little thoughts about part 1. I'm gonna come back on the mic tomorrow for part 2. I don't think did I mention the merch earlier that I'm doing it again, because I blocked it. I blocked it last week by accident, but I'm wearing the shirt again. But it's okay because I just did laundry, so don't come at me saying that I'm wearing the same like shirt. And to be real with you guys, I only put on an outfit for the podcast, and then I switch into my house clothes. Like I got house clothes. Like I won't lie to you. Like I wear this every day in the house, every week, like on this day, and then when it comes to podcast day or actually going outside, then I'll, put on actual clothes. But that was part 1. I'll release the 2 parts together. I'm not going to be fucking Alex Cooper and like drop one today and then drop one tomorrow. But yeah, it's going to come out Friday. So if you're listening, it's on Friday. It's Friday. Happy Friday. You made it through the week. Congratulations. But I'll see you in part 2. Peace. I realize I don't even need a piece, because we're going to just flow right into it. So I'm going to keep talking for like a second. I'm going to, throw in something here. I'm going to post this separately. But I started some drama today on Facebook. So I live in a neighborhood. My neighborhood has a Facebook group. A subsidiary group of that group is a like neighborhood, like kind of like market. It's like, hey, I have this. Does anybody want it? And they're like, yeah, I want it. And so one of them posted a post today, and they were like, just to remind you guys that like this is not a resale group. You can't just take the stuff we give you and then resell it, right? And nothing is stopping me from reselling it. I want to be clear on that. There's just nothing illegal about that. Just to preface the stance I'm going to take, but it's out of being a good neighbor, right? Like, you want to be a good neighbor, you want to support your neighborhood, whatever, right? So I understand the sentiment, right? I chose violence today. I woke up, saw that post, and I was like, yo, there's somebody named Christina in this group. She be taking the shit and selling it. I'm snitching. I'm pulling a Ludwig. I'm snitching hard body. And then I read the comments like before mine, right? Because I was like, oh, yeah. They were like, yeah, but let's try not. Let's just DM the admins. Don't try to name drop people. Don't try. I didn't read the comments whatsoever. Until after I commented my comment. But it got to a point where they turned off the comments because I name dropped a person. And I'll keep that bitch name in there. I know what you be doing. I'll be seeing you do your shit. But that's just some little tea for you to enjoy in between the 2 parts. But I hope you enjoyed that, and let's get on to the next. That's embarrassing. It didn't stop. Welcome back. So I'm going to release the audio on Friday, right? It's going to be Friday when you hear this. It might be, well, it's not going to be Friday when you hear this. It might be like Friday night that you see the episode dropped. But we're talking part 2 of the Jamie Lynn Spears. I kept saying Curtis in my head for a long time, and I was kind of insecure about messing up the name. But Jamie Lynn Spears part 2 interview, and it starts off hot. And when I say hot, I mean Alex Cooper brings it, right? She asks a question, and it's a very straightforward question, but she starts to kind of answer it and then starts kind of leading off a tangent. And then right before she starts breaking off into this tangent, Alex Cooper she interrupts her and said, "Let's get into it." What a queen. That was the funniest part, I think, of the interview. It was like Jamie Lynn was going to wander off into her own thoughts and not necessarily talk about what the question that she was asked, but Alex brought it back. So that was major props, major interview skills to her. We clap it up for Alex Cooper. So let me bring my notes to the forefront. I will be glancing at them. So sorry, I'm not a professional that I can't remember everything that I wrote down. I will have them in front of me, and I will look at them when I need to. Okay, so it says, we learned in the first interview, which I don't think I covered in the first part of this episode, was that the dad really necessarily wasn't that great of a father. I think I briefly, mentioned it, but we learned and got confirmation in the second part of the interviews that, the dad was never really that good of a dad. And so when he got the rights to her conservatorship, at the very beginning, it was, at the time for Jamie Lynn, she didn't know what that was, right? As a kid, you don't know what the hell that means. You don't know what that means, or, things like that along those lines. But, she's looking at it now in the lens of like her adult age, and she's like, I don't know the reason why he got it. You could ask a judge from the state of California. And so it's, you hear that right now, getting all this information in from the first part and now this part. And we think to ourselves, okay, we get this firsthand experience from Jamie Lynn that, he necessarily wasn't that good of a dad, and he left to handle the Britney stuff. And so you can say that a judge would rule favorably in his favor, because of, the time he spent with Britney and, being a focal adult in her life. And vocal. I don't know what I meant to say. What is the word I'm looking for? Anyway, a pivotal adult in her life, because, they were separated, the mother and the father. And, we get some trauma, and we learn that the father wanted to resign from that agreement, and he wanted to for some time. And Britney shares the text, right? And that she mentions that she has never been involved in the conservatorship. And she shows us a picture of the document, right? And we see it on the Spotify page, because Call Daddy is an exclusive podcast for Spotify, but we see the contract in the video part of the podcast. And so it's very clear, you don't really need to go to law school to understand what the contract or what the document or the subsection of the document is saying. So we understand that she never really had a part. They wanted her to take part in it, and she just never got to filling that portion out. Filling the necessary requirements to be a part of the conservatorship. And, I think here it could be speculated out of pure laziness, or maybe she was trying to be a good person and not really get involved with it. It's up to her and whoever she believes in, whether it be God or the greater spirit or like whatever she may believe in. The truth will only be known between her and if she believes in anything greater than herself. I think that's a large portion of the rest of the interview. It's easy to kind of jump and attack her like she has been attacked, right? And I'm not going to sympathize with anyone. But I do believe sometimes the internet is a super harsh place to navigate. And you get one little piece of information out there, and then the internet will decide that it is the only piece of information that matters. Because what really got me, and I don't know if she was being super genuine when she said this, or maybe it was a well thought out, calculated response. A lot of people are going to say it's probably a well calculated response, and a lot of people aren't going to be happy that maybe this interview wasn't as hard hitting as it was shown in the trailer. But when she said that when people were having whispers about the relationship between her and her sister, and how it was affecting her child, and that it flashed her back to when she was a child in the middle of scandals, and in the middle of public scrutiny, that she decided that she's not going to stand for that, and she she reached out to her sister numerous times. She's like, hey, I need to be mama bear. I need to protect my daughter because I know how much this sucked and I did it by myself. And I don't want to leave my daughter to do it by herself, which is understandable, right? Like, if you're a parent, think about that. Think about what she said. She has gone through a traumatic experience herself. And unfortunately, her daughter is in a position where she can go through similar or maybe even the same kind of traumatic experiences. And as a parent, ask yourself, would you let that happen? Would you stand by and let her handle that by herself and let her do it on her own? The answer, I believe, is no. And even people who aren't parents, I think, if you just take out Jamie Lynn Spears, Britney Spears, right? You take the names out, you present it as a case study, right? Anonymous, mom A, mom B, whatever you want to say. Make it as anonymous as possible. Make it to where the scenario is exactly the same without the names. And, I think 9 times out of 10, people are going to be like, I don't want my child to go through that alone. So that's where she kind of really hooked me in that part of the interview. The rest of the interview, I was like, it felt like there might have been pressure on both sides. There might have been pressure to get the truth out from Alex's team. There was definitely pressure to get the truth out from her team as well, from Jamie Lynn's team. But I also, Jamie Lynn's team. But also I believe that the Jamie Lynn team side was also very, very hesitant on what was allowed to be said. She even, in this part 2 section of the interview, she even stops the interview. She's like, hey, she looks over, asks somebody else off microphone, off camera. You can still hear, obviously it's not that much off microphone, but she asks them a particular question, and to me it was like, okay, as somebody who has minimal experience in this kind of business, and anybody else that would have minimal experience in this business or the most experience in the business, everybody knows that when it comes to interviewing someone else, there's always the courtesy of asking them, is there anything you want to talk about? Is there something we should avoid? Things like that. It's just being a good person to your guests, right? Because at the end of the day, we want them to have a good experience, right? But this is a special kind of situation. All I know is that if there was any super hard-hitting questions that might have been posed, they would have just walked away, I think. And silence speaks volumes, right? I always believe if someone walks away from something, especially in an interview setting, and in that context, there's more in having the walk away in the silence as opposed to having a pitched response, for a lack of a better term. So I think silence always speaks volumes. The funniest part to me of that interview, I don't think any of it was supposed to be funny, but she says that people have been harassing her and calling her names and hating her on social media, and somebody called her a human trafficker, and I was like, what the fuck? How is that related to anything that we may have heard of this particular scenario? And I don't know why just human trafficker just sent me. I was just like, no way someone just said that. I don't know. I don't see any evidence of her, guilt on that realm. But I don't know. All of a sudden, just no, fuck you, you human trafficker. I'm like, whoa. Time out. A human trafficker? I would feel offended. I would feel so offended. I'd be like, do I give off that vibe? Is that what you think of me? Shit, hate me all you want, but human trafficking? That's some Jeffrey Epstein shit. So, do I have to bleep that name out? Is that something I can't say? No, I don't think so. Take a sip of water. Okay. We have a water break presented by nobody. Not sponsored yet. So, Rose, you sticker, as you should. Vans, because I went to a Vans store once in Florida. Under Armour, I stole this off of a counter in some random building that I just happened to walk in. It is what it is. Logitech sticker. All my peripherals are Logitech. So Logitech, be nice to me, please. Georgetown, represent. We go there. Another Vans sticker. Same reason why. Life is rough. Take a puff sticker. That was a Spencer purchase. That was pretty awesome. We Can Do It, my one time in Washington, D.C. I got, the one of the most iconic things you think of when it comes to history. A street tattoo vendor sticker. It was fucking huge, and I just needed to take up real estate on my water bottle because it was brand new at the time. And so I found it randomly downstairs in the basement. And then a Days sticker. I got it in Florida too, I think. And I just took it from a vape shop. They were just giving out stickers, and I took it. It is what it is, really. So that's my mini collection of stickers. And just to end this bonus episode out, let me move closer real quick. But a little update on the Facebook drama that I may have started the other day when I was recording the first part to this. Somebody reached out to me. It was like, it was a woman, just to let you know, right? And she was like, "Is this the Christina you're looking like that does that?" And I was like, "Bruh, how did you know? There's like 25 Christinas in this group, and I called out one, and you took a 1 in 25 chance and got it right. Like, that's impressive to me." So she reached out, and I was like, "Yeah," and then she was like, "Okay, cool. Thanks for letting me know. Be safe out there." Be safe out there? What? What are you gonna do, ma'am? She made it sound like she's the Mandalorian, and I was that sheriff of that one town, and he took back when Mando, killed that like giant like worm in season 1, and we saw the sheriff of that town wearing Boba Fett's armor. It was kind of like that. Like when he was leaving, he was like, "Take care of yourself," and I was like, "Take care of myself? What are you gonna do? You vigilante. Vigilante. I was thinking vinaigrette. I was gonna say vinaigrette. I probably should have said vinaigrette, but vigilante." But that's about it. Let me just wrap up my thoughts of what I've learned of watching this interview with Alex Cooper and Jamie Lynn Spears. I learned nothing tangible. I learned a lot of shit about her personal life that, frankly, I don't think was necessary. Even though it is a Jamie Lynn Spears interview, it's not a Jamie Lynn Spears / Britney Spears interview. It does sound like she wants to, handle things privately. She said it multiple times, but it sounds like she genuinely wants to because the relationship to her sister matters to her. So we love to see that. We hope that it is successful, that they do manage to address each other privately and kind of come to a conclusion with that issue. But other than that, it didn't necessarily feel like it had substance. It felt like it lacked substance. But when you get a high profile interview like that, politics is always gonna kind of get in the way with that. And we got what we got, which was a good interview. But I think when you lay the name Jamie Lynn Spears down with first public interview, we don't expect good. We kind of, as a community, as a society, we would kind of expect over the top. And I don't blame Alex Cooper for putting out that kind of interview. I saw a bunch of like hateful messages towards her posted on her story and just under the comments on their podcast page. But I just think there's a lot of behind the scenes things that could be happening that we just frankly don't know of. And so I'm willing to give her, Alex Cooper, the benefit of the doubt. But other than that, I still enjoy Call Her Daddy. It's not a thing I'm going to be like, I'm on the cancel Call Her Daddy boat. Call Her Daddy has been tremendous in my growth personally as a navigator of social media. And, and I was fortunate enough to get on a Zoom call with Alex Cooper because of that. And so, that's a piece of history that is untold yet. And there will be a time and place when it will be told. But that was this week's bonus episode of Idle Talk. The audio is going out tonight. I don't care. I'm going to do it. But clips may come out over the weekend. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope you took the time to listen to this, because I had fun doing it, and I would love to do a lot more bonus episodes. I'm like super inspired right now, and it's just something I love to do now. I'll say that I've always loved it. But now I'm falling in love with it. You know, you can love to do something. I can love to take a walk outside. Am I in love with walking outside? No. So before, it's like I love podcasting, but I am in love with podcasting, even though it is one of the hardest things to do by yourself. And so, you know, time management is crucial, and you know, I'm getting more productive, and getting better with my time. So other than that, that was a hell of an episode, hell of a bonus episode. It took 2 days to record, but either way, I'm Fernando, and I'll see you on the next super secret bonus episode of Idle Talk. Peace.